as we see that there is a deal potentially in the works to stop, in fact, the conflict that has been raging on for more than 3 years. And now my colleague, the Riyad Vedi, is also sharing more highlights over how the Russian and the Ukraine media has also covered this summit at large and presented, in fact, the coverage in detail. Riya, over to you.
Obviously, this meeting was something that everyone had their eyes on, especially when you're talking. Right now, what you can see on your screens, viewers, is KyievIndependent.com. They have an editorial opinion piece, and the headline reads, "That meeting was sickening and Putin loved it." And another headline, another opinion piece that the headline reads, "We didn't get there. Trump-Putin failed to reach deal to end war in Ukraine." So this is what Kyiv Independent has said. Another article by Kyiv Independent is, "Trump-Putin concludes talks, high-stakes summit on Ukraine in Alaska." And in their editor's note, they have written, "U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Putin arrived in Alaska on August 15 for a high-stakes summit, part of Washington's effort to negotiate a peace deal. But although Ukraine is on top of the agenda, President Zelensky has not been invited to the summit, and sparking fears in Kyiv and Europe that Putin and Trump might strike a deal unfavorable to the war-torn country." But that is not something that has taken up. And another headline in this reads, "Both leaders met for a photo opportunity after embarking their planes around 11 a.m. and Putin joined Trump in the U.S. president's motorcade en route to the location of the meeting." When we're talking about Kyiv Post, the headline reads, "Next time in Moscow, Putin secures de-isolation as Trump's listening exercise fails." So obviously, they have termed this a little negatively when they are talking about Trump's listening exercise, quote-unquote, fails. And they're obviously written, "While the U.S. president calls the talk productive, his failure to secure a firm commitment to peace has been widely interpreted as a missed opportunity to pressure the aggressor genuinely." So heavy language you can see being used in this. Another thing to note is the Moscow Times. Their headline reads, "Trump and Putin end Alaska talks with no deal on Ukraine." When we take a look at this article, the President Putin and U.S. counterpart Trump said they made progress at ending the war in Ukraine in a high-stakes summit in Alaska, but notably did not reach the landmark peace deal that Trump had been hoping for. And they also said, but despite a red carpet reception for Putin and warm words traded by both leaders, the two sides appeared unable to reconcile their stark differences on how to end the war. So that is something that they have focused on as well when we're talking about Russian and Ukrainian media. Back to studio.
As we see that there is an editorial bias over the coverage over the summit, my colleague Riyad Vedi very directly explains how exactly the coverage has been. Now, also joining me live to share more highlights and insights on that is Burshova Dasgupta, senior journalist with us live on the telecast. Appreciate you joining me live. And, you know, we see that there has been many takeaways of how it has went at the summit. But as I have been also speaking to more guests on the broadcast, we get a sense that there is also more anticipation of what happens next from this point of time. How do you look at the kind of arrangement that the summit has brought up to, also putting a hope on to some relief that could be expected soon as far as the conflict is concerned?
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak on this. I have been watching the progress of the discussions, but what I could see from say, the press conference, nothing has emerged, except some exchange of pleasantries and some, I mean, Putin saying that we are very close neighbors. We have not met for the last 4 years. It's good that we meet now. And he has also asked or requested Trump to come to Moscow. And Trump on his part has been, we are very good friends. So there was just exchange of pleasantries, nothing to be very cheered about. But if you had already given us the rundown on the media coverages, if you look at CNN, you find one of the specialists who was tracking says that Trump did not win, but Putin won, whatever that might mean, which shows that there was no progress. It was not a very favorable coverage of the deal by Trump or Trump's government. But on the other hand, we saw Fox, for example. Fox has been saying that, well, Putin did not, I mean, it was, the blame was on Putin, and Putin did not respond that way. Whatever the situation is, whatever the coverage, and the Moscow coverage is also, the Russian coverage is also said that they were unable to reconcile, they have failed to come to a conclusion. But that is quite all speculative. But what they really happened behind the scene or behind the wall, we do not know. But from the statements, one thing is clear, that there can be no negotiation without the presence of, say, Ukraine. I mean, Zelensky was refused to be there in the discussion. They are discussing the war between Ukraine and Russia, and you can't just have someone, talk with someone and not the other part. But that has not happened. So the initial meeting doesn't really lead to anywhere. But one way one can say that the two big powers have come together. That is something positive. And the statement also of Trump saying that I will talk to the NATO, meaning the European powers, which is also a positive sign. But how much Russia or Putin will accept that? I mean, the presence of NATO is also a question, because he has always been describing that America comes at the doorsteps through NATO. That was his earlier statement. So he's very hostile to the NATO powers as well, and their backing of, say, Zelensky. So let's wait for the next Moscow meeting, where Putin has invited Trump.